So right now we have you all in this larger view of the Sword Coast. This is a northern view that is between Neverwinter and the Mirror of Dead Men along the high road. This high road continues down about the same amount of distance south of the Mirror of Dead Men to Water's Deep, and about that same amount of distance between Waterdeep and Baldur's Gate. And that is more or less the proper Sword Coast. It is the western coast of this continent of Faerun. Inside of all of that makes up the Sword Coast is kind of the central position of the Lord's Alliance. Those three cities, a few other larger habitable zones, and a few small towns make up the Lord's Alliance. But in general, this is a political area where most of the lords have agreed that it is to their advantage to work together and to try not to bring war to each other before other things effectively come in and destroy them. Neverwinter is among the northern positions of these places. About a generation of men ago, there was a huge explosion from Mount Hotenau that nearly wiped out much of Neverwinter, and it is just now starting to actually find itself getting kind of back to the status quo of having rebuilt a lot of Neverwinter and kind of rising back to its old kind of power level look at things. The high road itself is a safe enough place to pass in many regards. When it starts to lead into the Mirror of Dead Men, the Mirror of Dead Men is a swamp that slowly creeps ever deeper into the east and into the actual landmass, effectively cutting off this road between Waterdeep and Neverwinter. And that is one of the things that perhaps makes the high road the most dangerous, is that it's not a safe path between where it would lead, but it is safer. The guards of Neverwinter, do a pretty good job of patrolling the actual high road. It doesn't mean that there are guards at any given time when something does happen. It is still an open landmass where bad things happen. The Tribor Trail itself is even more remote, and the town of Phandalin that you all have been invited to is a destroyed frontier town that basically these first whisperings are actually of people resettling Phandalin and trying to bring it back to life. So that's kind of like this general area of what you were looking at here. And just a little bit north of the Mirror of Dead Men along the high road is the town of Leyland. Not marked on this map here, but that's kind of like the initial what any given person who's made it to Neverwinter and not from Neverwinter would kind of understand about the high road. Phandalin might be the type of thing that when you got this letter, you were able to pick up effectively this idea that it is on kind of the northwestern side of the Sword Mountains, but you likely don't really know anything about it because there's not really much to tell. It's not really all that special of a place. It's just a destroyed town that was effectively a mining town ages ago. So all of your letters are for you all to meet outside of Neverwinter at the South Gate, where you all will basically come to the stable master and with a kind of little bit of an introduction, find yourselves all meeting and waiting on, I believe we have the 24th of the Melting, which is the month of Myrtle. And you will basically kind of find yourselves all grouping up at this stable early in the afternoon. And I am curious at that point who thinks that they would arrive kind of early as possible at the stable to meet the stable master.
I guess Flynn would be there as early as possible.
Gotcha. So, Flynn, as you walk, you would be coming from inside of Neverwinter, leaving the docks and basically walking through. I feel like it's probably the southern district of Neverwinter. I did not look at that ahead of time, but Neverwinter is kind of split into a crescent, and the actual river that comes out of the Neverwinter woods runs through it, kind of splitting the town into two, or the city into two, the northern district and the southern district. I believe it's the southern district that's actually connected to the docks. So they each have their own kind of main thoroughfare that basically meet back together along the way I've seen Neverwinter. All of its gates are on the east side of the city. I believe it has a northern gate on the east side and a southern gate on the east side. So the southern gate to me, again, it's still an eastern gate. It's just south of the other gate. Heading out, though, you basically can find yourself passing between the guards and this keep. This area is well guarded. It's not that you have to walk through like a security zone so much as leaving. Next to no problem. Coming back in, the guards are there, but they don't necessarily check anyone. So you're just kind of seeing a free flow of traffic, but there is a presence of guards at this actual gate as you are heading out of town. When you make it outside of the initial keep, you are going to spot a few buildings. It doesn't take you long to either recognize from experience or just recognize from what you are looking for as a stable to find a small building that has a kind of side door to it, a little setback. You can hear the horses. You can smell the fragrance of horses from this main gate, kind of to the right. That's a longer side of this house. And you can kind of see inside some of the horse heads as they are feeding on their hay and whatnot. But you see an older gentleman, big, full black beard, moving between kind of this left side of the house, the little setback portion, and kind of the side of where the stables are. And as you approach this stable, you see as this person is basically walking towards you, and behind him, you can see that there is a wagon loaded up with things, with a canvas kind of tarpaulin already pulled over the top and kind of tied down, and you can see some signs of what's packed underneath, but effectively the tarpaulin blocks over a bunch of things. But you essentially are seeing this wagon that is already set, and this dark haired figure is basically walking towards you. He's probably like mid to late 40s, dark black hair. He's probably about 5.5, 6 feet tall. He doesn't seem to be a like weak person at all, but also not necessarily a really big human. What are your thoughts as you walk towards, or as this person kind of spins to walk towards you?
Um, guess I wonder is this the stable master I'm supposed to meet?
Do you want to say something to them, or that's just your thought to yourself?
Um, yeah, I'll approach him and say, I'll ask him, are you the stable master?
So as you approach and kind of ask this, you'll hear from him. Hi, name's Remus. How can I help you?
Hello. Lynn, I need to here to meet the stable master. I got a have a letter from, uh, sorry, Gundren.
So as you start to pull out this letter, he's going to reach for it with his left hand, and he'll reach out with his right to shake your hand as he says, Flynn, it's a pleasure to meet you. My name's Ramus. If you end up with any questions, you can certainly let me know, as he's kind of like quickly glancing over this letter that he has from you. And then before he lets go of your hand after shaking your hand, he's going to hand you the letter back, and he'll point back with his left hand towards this side little alcove where you can see that that's kind of a little bit of his own home that kind of sits off from the side of this little stable area here. And as he points, I described that poorly. Let's go for, yeah, let's pretend the horses are not actually on that wagon at present, and you can basically walk past the wagon. And he'll basically point like, if you just head past the wagon there, you can sit yourself down and make yourself at home. I have a little bit of tea already brewing. I believe we'll be waiting for a few more of you.
Alright, thank you.
So over the next few minutes, he'll be nearby. You hear him outside. You hear him sometimes in the actual stable. As far as things go, if you are sitting inside of his little living space here, I'm just going to drop you in that area. If you are sitting inside of that living space, you can see through the entire stables, as well as basically see out of that right door and past again where the horses are, like on that actual little wagon. For what it's worth, his house is at present effectively fully open, like all of the doors are open. Um, I guess even probably that western door. So looking around, you see a very austere house. His actual living space smells just as much like a horse as the actual stable does. There's nothing fine about what this is, but for what it is worth, it is kind of a moment to rest yourself. It is not necessarily any worse or any nicer than you might have come across in Neverwinters as a place to stay. But in the long run, this is one of those things where, as far as a general free person who's running their own business, this is the good life. Uh, and then Einar or Candor, where do you think either of you kind of sits on when are you going to arrive? Who do you think would be next? Either early, kind of on time, or running late?
Einar is sort of watching for other people to arrive first to see that this isn't some sort of hoax or a trick. So he's sort of skulking, waiting to see if anyone else arrives.
And so Candor he was kind of headed to Neverwinter already before he got this letter, but so he was like kind of somewhat ambivalent about whether to actually, follow the letter's instructions. So um, he would arrive in, outside Neverwinter probably, a little bit early, but he would be kind of like looking towards the gate and like kind of almost like not skulking about so much, I guess, but more kind of just kind of a little torn before maybe like right around midday, like right around the time finally start heading towards the stable masters or towards the building. So he probably would have seen maybe from a distance Flynn going in, but he would have kind of waited until like right around midday to actually head over there.
So I would say that there's certainly like some trees on this general area here, different spots where either of you would actually find an appropriate spot to kind of give yourself a little bit of an overwatch. On some level, perhaps Einar is just kind of sitting back, enjoying like a pipe, or just kind of enjoying like a little bit of like a ration, kind of relaxed where a lot of people are flowing into and out of the city. At this point, it does seem very active because this is a funneling point where people are arriving, kind of keeps action outside of Neverwinter at this little locale. I think at some point it sounds pretty viable that the two of you are each doing your best kind of gray man and almost player recognizing player or game recognizing game, have that kind of moment where you each recognize that the other person is scoping out this stable master. And perhaps it is at that point where you actually each see Flynn walking up to and talking with this stable master. But for what it is worth, I think it sounds viable that the two of you are having very similar experiences of you've watched the first person arrive. You can take a little bit more time, but on some level, you're kind of recognizing that each of you is doing this exact same thing, staying close enough to watch, far enough away to be unnoticed. And it's only because you're doing that that you notice the other person doing it as well. Because each of you might like look to the other one, and you're each kind of recognizing like, that was actually my second choice of places to watch this place from. He's at least got some things right. And you kind of like note that to yourself as you all see. But when you are ready, I think one of you can certainly give in and be the next person to arrive, or the two of you can kind of take this as an opportunity to meet each other and then basically arrive together.
Yeah, so after kind of after that, and kind of Kander's kind of like looking up, kind of like looking at the sun, then realizing it's like right around that time, and kind of like take out like kind of like the letter to himself, like read it one more time, stick it back in his pocket, kind of give a little sigh, and then looking over towards Einar, kind of give like a little not wearing a hat, but like a little kind of little wave, and then like friendly, and then um start heading towards the entrance.
Yeah, and Einar is following shortly after.
So each of you will have a pretty similar experience when you read Remnus, where he will basically introduce himself, get your name, look over your little invitation, invite you all to basically find your way into his own little bedroom there, where you will each, I guess, at first, let me have, because you have experience doing this, Justin, let me have a first impression physical description of your character, and I'm going to have Flynn do this next. Again, as a reminder, just because I always do this, this is not describe your character. This is describe what somebody sees of your character. This is the type of thing where if you carry a sword or like a great sword, they're going to see sword like a sword in a sheath. Everybody has a backpack, so it's easier to kind of forget to describe that. But in the long run, there are things that tell other people that you are an adventurer, and also a little bit about yourself. Like, for instance, what kind of armor that you might be wearing. Leather is a whole lot easier to glance over than like plate mail. And actual like fabric and no weapons might say a little bit more about somebody in a different way. But for what it's worth, can we have Candor describe what Flynn sees as Candor basically walks into that living area?
Sure. Yeah. So Candor is looks to be a human, maybe a little taller than average, but seems to almost like he carries himself very confidently. Almost makes him seem like a little bit taller than he actually is. He's got pretty thick, about nape length, uh, black hair. He's wearing some just pretty basic leather armor, dyed black, over a very stark white shirt and kind of like black trousers. At one hip, he's got his or at his left hip, he's got like a basket hilted rapier. You'll see a couple smaller blades, a couple daggers on like a almost like a chest sheath kind of thing. Um, Short bow, kind of over one shoulder, along with a quiver of arrows. And yeah, very kind of always seems to be like a kind of like a bit of a wry smile playing at his mouth. Pretty good looking guy. Um, and yeah, carries himself seems to carry himself pretty confidently as he walks in.
Excellent. Can I have you describe Flynn for what Candor is initially seeing here?
All right. Let's see. Flynn is a human, dark hair, short dark hair. Um, he's about 6 feet tall, I guess. He's wearing I guess what you would notice most is he's wearing chainmail, and it looks like brand new chainmail. Um, he's got a longsword on his side, and he has like a few javelins strapped to his back. Sort of looks like he's young, like a brand new. Seems like he's new at whatever this is, adventuring. But he carries himself with confidence. Um, he has like a genuine smile when he steps up to shake your hand.
Where is your emblem at?
Um, oh yeah, I also have a shield, and that would have the emblem of Shantae on it.
Gotcha. So, at very least, I think, Candor, you have a solid chance just placing yourself down near um, Baldur's Gate. You have a solid chance of recognizing this as Shantea. Do you want to roll for this, or do you want to just recognize it as a somewhat local deity to down south?
I think he's been, he's traveled around a bit enough that he would at least, I mean, he wouldn't know much, but he would recognize a symbol. I feel like.
Gotcha. So effectively, you can recognize this is somebody who reveres Shantia in enough that you can recognize that she is a god of kind of the harvest. As far as what else you might gain from that can be for the future. But the two of you kind of walk into each other's presence. If you would like a moment to speak with each other, that is perfectly fine. Otherwise, whenever Einar is ready, you can kind of do a similar thing of introducing your character. But I think at present we'll give the chance for Candor and Flynn.
Yeah, Flynn stands up, walks over. He's like, Hey, I'm Flynn. It's good to meet you. I assume you're also here for the job?"
Well met, Flynn. Candor. And yes, I think safe to say we're both here for the same reason. I think I saw one other right behind me.
So, with that, as your kind of conversation happens, eventually Candor kind of takes the opportunity for a corner of his eye when he recognizes Einar is actually approaching the building to kind of use like this little bit of almost like a magic trick of making this person arrive on call. You can kind of point out Einar's entrance. And Einar, can I have you describe what you look like as you approach these other two.
Yeah, Einar is generally unremarkable by design. His goal is always to fit in and not to stand out and blend in with the crowd. He does have a hood. He has a couple of short swords. He's obviously dressed for travel with the backpack. He's in his 30s. But generally, he's quite a reserved character and alert.
Did you describe what weapons are you carrying?
Yeah, so I'm carrying 2 short swords and also a longbow. I'm wearing leather armor as well.
So as you all approach, you can have a moment to meet Einar and kind of pass niceties between each other's. Do you all have any other thoughts at present at this first meeting on anything that you would like to say to one another?
I'm looking at Flynn and recognizing his face. I'm just going to ask Flynn, have I seen you around the docks? I think I know your face.
Oh yeah. Would I recognize Einar? He also works on the docks.
Yeah, that's where I work. I'm sure that we've passed during our work hours. We've never actually spoken to each other though. But it's good to meet you.
Yeah. Nice to meet you. You're a familiar face.
Yep, that's one of those things that ends up always being predominantly up to you all, how much you want to do backstory on things like that. Depending on how long the two of you have your characters inside a town, you have this level of familiarity that you can share between each other, where at very least somebody who works a steady job like that, especially like a dock worker, somebody who's not like just straight up an alcoholic and spending all of their money day to day, it probably stands out at least a little bit, giving you at least a little bit of extra potential like respect for somebody on that level. But in the long run, a lot of things, it's purely up to you guys to write a lot of narratives. You are welcome to describe and create backgrounds with each other. But yeah, I would say having not done it outside of today, you would basically, yeah, just have like recognizing each other's faces. An indescript amount of time ago probably was the first time that you saw the other, but in the long run, you might have worked like a different jetty. You might have worked on the same dock. You might have unloaded the same boats at times. In the long run, it's up to you guys to kind of distinguish there. But as you all are having the conversation, you will see as at some point Remnus kind of comes back in. He's going to take a little bit of a pot that's been hanging over the hearth and kind of move it down a couple links on the chain so it hangs a little bit closer to the embers that are just kind of like steeping as a red charcoal. And as he kind of sits down, he's going to look to you all and, well, I was quite sure that I would be expecting a few more of you, but this is the time that Gundren has set out for me to send you on your way. And he's going to kind of like pat around on his person, like on his chest for a moment before kind of looking around the room, where he finds a little piece of parchment that's like underneath a little candle holder that's over by his little table. And he sorts through these things before he pulls out this piece of parchment. And then he's going to set it down on the table in front of Flynn, where he looks over it and he's just going to kind of one after another, kind of like looking back between the wagon and this list, go over those list of 12 pickaxes, 8 shovels, and he goes down this list as he looks for it, and he'll kind of look back to you all after a few moments and, well, you all have your particular letters, and Gundren instructed me that you should keep those as close as you can to yourselves. But if you would be so kind, he has set this aside for you to sign as a contract before heading out, that you have his goods, and then the payment will be waiting for you when you arrive at Barthen's Provisions in Phandalin. If you would all be so kind. And he'll basically kind of step away from this little bit of parchment, sitting back down near the hearth, kind of opens it up, and he's just going to take the next few moments to stir and kind of like prepare this little bit of a meal and wait for you all to take a moment to sign.
Yeah, so Kander will kind of move over, take a look at the just looking through the contract. Seems kind of interested in a list of what they're going to be carrying, but kind of also just kind of like shaking his head with a little grin, and he'll kind of just like almost mutter under his breath, but perhaps loud enough for the others to hear, like, "They're in his contracts. Words not enough." And then he'll move to sign, and kind of he'll sign in a very kind of like looping, kind of carefree script, but he will go ahead and sign. A very kind of flourishy, flowery kind of signature.
Yeah, Flynn will just read the contract and seems straightforward enough, and he'll sign it. Very simple. It's a very simple signature. Nothing.
And Einar is taking an incredibly long time to read through the fine print and deciding should he sign this or not. He decides that he's really is attracted to the pay, and he signs it with a scribble that's illegible.
So Rimnus is going to kind of look over you all for a moment here, and with kind of a little bit of a pause. Oh, wow. He's gonna look.
Tuck it away beneath the in the little pocket. I'll yep, never you worry. I'll take good care of it. And then he'll kind of head back towards the others and wait for a bit of a meal.
So the stable master is making himself busy as he's setting up the horses ready to go. You guys have this little bit of kind of a potato stew that there's signs that there was meat added into the stew, but it's far more signs than there is actual like chunks of meat. But you kind of have this very thick potato stew to have for yourselves while you have a few moments at the stable masters. Are there any other thoughts that you all would like to do before getting underway?
I just want to ask the question: how long is it going to take us?
So, as you all take the time, if you would like to ask Remnus, that is perfectly fine. Is that what you're doing?
Yes.
And just simple, how long should it take?
Yeah. How long should this take us? Yeah.
Without too much difficulty, it should be about a 3 days travel. There's certainly other options as to how long it will take if you head head to the Tribor. You'll probably be about 2 days. It's just about 25 or 50 miles. From there, I believe Phandolin's another day's travel away. That is much more a question of the state of the trail. Triboard Trail has not been used actively for quite some time.
A year's wages for me in just 3 days sounds wonderful.
So when you all are ready to set out, you can find yourselves a place to go on the wagon. If you would like to be the driver, that is perfectly fine. But as you all are traveling, do you all have thoughts as to who will drive the horses? Who is going to perhaps ride next to the driver? And then basically with 3 people, you can have one person riding on the back of the wagon and or simply walking beside it.
I have proficiency in land vehicles, so I could drive.
Candor would Candor'd offer to keep him company up beside, kind of sitting next to him.
I know he's happy to sit and watch on the cart.
Gotcha. So in general, I would say for the future, for that Flynn, just think of it as I'm skilled in driving wagons. I've done it at the docks in the past.
Right.
Don't talk about things like proficiency. Like you
Yeah,
guys are
sorry. I
not
was meant
looking
to
at a
be out of
character sheet.
character.
And that'll go for things like when I ask you guys if somebody would like to do a skill check. I don't want to hear you guys talking about the numbers and the mechanics of the game. I want you to talk from your character's perspective. So if you feel skilled in doing something like handling a group of animals, let the others know. I'm pretty confident with animals at the reins. I'd feel perfectly fine leading them. Um,
Okay.
so when you guys are setting off here, we will have Flynn driving the team, Kander at their side, and Einar can either be in the wagon or walking beside it as you all travel. This is effectively late in the melting. Again, Myrtle is the actual month. This is approaching the end of spring and the start of high summer. As far as things go in the north here near Neverwinter, it is very warm. It is very much like perspiration is the wrong word, but there is liquid in the air. It is moist. It is like a very wet heat, the kind of heat where when you step out into the sun, you have these like bouts of you can feel your energy drain from your body just by starting to kind of move around and things. It is very much the heat of summer. When you all start to move away with the horses, let me get an animal handling from Flynn here, please. Excellent. So there's not a whole lot of people outside of Neverwinter, kind of towards like the midday here. You have a pretty solid understanding that perhaps most people, either being on foot or whatnot, are effectively kind of taking a little opportunity to siesta through the hottest part of the day. You all are setting off with your wagons, so it's a little bit easier. You're taking some of the heat, but you're not actually putting forth effort. As Flynn kind of works with the beasts, it takes a few moments to keep them under wraps. You definitely have a few opportunities where Einar is like kind of noticing things that are the tarpaulin, but in general, not being terribly cooperative. You're not having any big issues. You're not running anybody over. You're not causing like a big scene. But there are definitely a few close calls where you're in this location that is a little bit higher kind of population at present, because you are still right at that gate of Neverwinter. As you all head off in that day, you'll see plenty of signs of people traveling south, plenty of signs of people traveling north. You see the occasional set of guards who are walking. If you all keep to a travel pace to actually make a full day's travel in this afternoon, that will basically be traveling from noon till around dark, maybe a little bit after dark. You could move the beasts a little bit faster to try to make the full distance in this day without moving, like traveling at dusk. But it's kind of up to you at this point. How fast would you all like to travel?
I'd probably want to travel at a um, as fast as possible at a safe pace for the horses. I wouldn't want to wear them out.
That sounds good for everybody. That is effectively just a normal traveling pace that you can start off with. You all can basically travel into the actual evening here, where you're probably about an hour to an hour or so past dark, like the sunset, where you're really traveling into those dusk hours, but not necessarily traveling past nighttime. And you have a pretty solid sense that you put about those 25 miles, about half of the distance that you have to go down the high road behind you. But for that in mind, when you all plan to stop here on the high road, you'll have already experienced some of the thinning out of that condensation of people, no longer getting to Neverwinter. You're seeing guards less. You're seeing like private people traveling less. When you all go to stop, do you have thoughts? Would you like to try to stop and stay with other people? Would you like to stop and stay with guards? What kind of thoughts do you all have here?
So like while they're traveling, like Candor sitting up near Flynn is like, very kind of very chatty. And then he's kind of like, well, it like the couple times that like Flynn seems to be having a little bit of trouble with the oxen. Candor's like kind of patting him on the back and just like saying like, yeah, trust Gundren to leave us with the two most ornery oxen in Neverwinter, and kind of just being friendly and stuff. In terms of when they stop for the night, Candor will, he'll look to see if there seems to be any somewhat larger groups of like, another camp that they might be able to join, maybe suggest to the others, might be uh
Safety in numbers.
yes, precisely.
Yeah, I'm sure. Any other, if there are other merchant carts or whatever, they wouldn't mind if we park with them, spend for the night.
Roll a perception for me, Candor. So if you all push on, you can see signs of fire up ahead along the road. From what you can tell, it's probably just another half mile or so. It doesn't look like far, but you can see fires just to the south of you.
Yeah, so Candor will kind of like nod off in the direction, nod and kind of like point off in the direction of the fires, and looking to Flynn, and I kind of like calling back to Einar if he's in the wagon or if he's walking beside. That looks like it might be promising.
All right. I'll head that way.
Yeah, I'm always a little bit suspicious of strangers, but I agree, safety in numbers.
Let me have Flynn and Candor roll a d20 for me, each of you, please. Flynn, if you see on the left side of the screen, there's a little polyhedron kind of towards the bottom of that little drop-down menu in roll 20. The polyhedron is a d20. If you click on it, it should, or I think if you hover over it, it should give you dice to throw, and you can throw just a normal d20 there. Or if you click on it, it brings you a different advanced menu. Again, same idea. That's like the simple way to throw dice that aren't like attached to a roll from D&D Beyond. And then can I have Einar, can you just roll a d6 for me, Einar? Are you there, Flynn? Can you roll a d20 for me?
Yeah, I tried. Sorry, it didn't. I rolled in Beyond. Didn't
What'd
go
you roll?
through. Didn't go through to the thing.
What'd you roll, though?
Oh, a 2. Huh.
Oh, both of you rolled a 2? Right? That's yours. That's Justin's Candor's, right? That showed up.
Yeah, I thought I saw in D&D Beyond. I saw like a thin Flynn
Oh,
rolled an 8.
I figured it out.
Gotcha. I mean, regardless, it's still a failure at either of those. So the two of you are going to see from the front of the wagon that these horses are getting tireder and tireder. The horses are going to mechanically suffer a level of exhaustion for being force marched further into the night. As you all march forward, this fire never actually feels like it's getting closer, and you all are going to find that you are about an hour deeper into the actual dark of night before you actually come to this fire, and you are going to see a group of people who are kind of joined around this larger bonfire. It seems to be a party of about 10 or so people. They kind of have their wagons more or less pulled around this fire. So, from a lot of perspectives, the fire is cut off from just casting light into all directions, but it doesn't stop it. They only have 4 wagons here. So, it's not that they have it fully encircled. But they are basically just off of the actual high road, next to kind of a copse of trees where they've gotten some of their firewood from. And you all can kind of pull up and do what you would like to do. When you arrive and you see, again, about 4 wagons, a large bonfire, and about 10 or so people, what are your thoughts?
So Candor's going to kind of like first like a glance towards Flynn and Einar and be like, apologies, thought it was a bit closer, kind of quietly before he like looks out towards the group and gives out like a cheery like, "Hail, well met. Mind if we join you?"
One of these people, a younger guy, probably about like mid-20s or so, from beneath his cloak is kind of gonna look up. You'll see like the kind of shine of the fire kind of cut across his face, seeing like half of this face where you can see he doesn't seem to have a beard, giving a little bit more to his youth, and kind of just looking up for a moment from his food. Well, you're welcome to join us. There's always, of course, safety in numbers.
Our thoughts exactly, my friend. He'll move to kind of hop down from the wagon and kind of wait for Flynn and Einar.
Yeah, I guess I'll move the wagon into sort of the position with the others, so it's sort of circling the fire.
Einar is thinking that he will stay with the wagon, given the contract that the payment won't be received if anything goes missing from it. So he thinks it's safe to stay there to keep watch over it.
So as you all start to kind of move into this group, setting up your wagon, Einar kind of staying behind with the wagon, are Flynn and Kandar starting to mix into this group of people? Are you all more or less staying with Einar? What kind of thoughts do you all have as you're kind of like just like falling in with this other group of people?
So Kander kind of go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, I'll take care of the horses first, since we didn't mean to exhaust them. So whatever I need to do for that, like, not sure, like, I don't know, give them water and stuff. Sure, there's food for them in the wagon, or
Yeah, as far as things go, you definitely have things for taking care of the horses. As far as them being tired, a lot of that is just recognizing that you went a little bit too far today. It doesn't necessarily mean anything.
all right. Yeah, I'll take care of the horses first, then I'll join people at the campfire. Just introduce myself. I'm Flynn from Neverwinter.
Kander will be kind of like looking towards Einar is like, keep a you can keep an eye on the cart from the fire. It won't be going anywhere. Um, but then he'll move to join Flynn and kind of similarly like first move to introduce himself. Name's Kander. Kind of starting with the man who had greeted him, the younger man who had kind of uh, offered to let them stay, and then kind of quickly going about from there. Very again very kind of friendly, outgoing.
So, as you all go to introduce yourselves to this group, you're going to get the name of the person who initially greeted you was Pike. That's probably the one that's really going to stick. As you kind of go around this group, a few other people kind of spout out their names. Nobody is especially kind of like looking away from their food. You can kind of tell there is a certain air of like these people are already pretty tired. But you basically will hear Pike, Jack, Treda, Felta, and Albert name themselves from this group of people. As you're kind of like trying to make sense of things, it's probably about half of these people have kind of named themselves. The other half have more or less kind of kept to themselves.
Yeah, so Kander will be like well met, very very kind of friendly, and then he will. Does it look like most people are eating from their own supplies, or is there like like a common stew or anything going on like that?
Let me get a perception from you, or you could do, yeah, we've got perception. Go for a perception. What does a failed state look like? I would say, as you kind of look around, there is a large kind of cauldron that's like tilted over next to the fire, and you can kind of see that these people are probably all together, and maybe they are short enough on food that not only did they clean out the pot, but that it was like kind of a ruckus as they finished up the food. Um, so I think that's kind of what you're picking up there.
Okay, so yeah, so Candor will kind of he'll like move over towards the pot, like and then like kind of like looking in, kind of give a little sigh, like, and then kind of walk back towards Flynn and Einar, who take a seat and kind of digging around in his pack for a bit, take out some uh, some of his own rations and start having his meal.
Einar, seeing that everything seems to be okay, he joins and drinks and eats rations.
Gotcha. So at this point, are you all more or less kind of keeping to yourselves and keeping to the wagon? Or are you still trying to like speak to some of the other people here? What are you all thinking about this group?
Glenn will probably make some small talk with the other group around the fire.
I'd just like to ask Pike if there's been any trouble on the road. So, Pike, has there been any trouble on the road?
Uh, Pike will kind of look to you and we've been traveling south out of Neverwinter for a little over 2 days. I haven't seen anything that's especially troubling, but we've heard from some folk who are coming up from the south of the other difficulties. There's certainly bandits about. It's part of why we were thinking to welcome you here, as a larger group is always less likely to be turned over from those who would prey on the weak. And then if Flynn doesn't have anything in particular that you are trying to speak about, let me just have a charisma throw from you.
Just plain charisma.
Yep, a charisma check, ability check.
Well, I'm not rolling good today.
So yeah, I think as you kind of go about these different people, you're just kind of finding a lot of people who are just like single word replies. You say something about like the heat of the day and how like stifling it was, and you just hear like a grunted, "Yeah." And then you go to the next person and you ask them about like the difficulties of how rough the road was and how tiring it was on the horses, and they just kind of a whole lot of people who just don't seem keen to talk or share anything at all.
Yeah, I'll get the message and eventually shut up and settle in for the night, I guess.
So when you all do prepare to settle down and rest for the night, what initial thoughts do you all have about sleeping through the night? Do you feel safe enough that everybody's just going to sleep? Do you want to set watches? What sort of thoughts do you have here?
I think we should set watches. I'm happy to go first. I just want to keep watch that a little bit longer. If there's talk of bandits on the road, I don't want to be taken by surprise. But I've been sitting in the cart all day, so you guys feel free to get a couple of hours sleep.
Well, yeah, Gundren is offering us pretty good money. I suppose we should. Least we can do is keep an eye on things during the night. Feel free to wake me in a few hours. I can take a watch.
All right. And I'm an early riser, so I can take final watch.
So there are 4 watches, and there's 3 of you. You basically can watch for 2 hours out of the 8 hours that you need to rest for. One of the benefits of being the person on watch is if something does happen, you can effectively be inside of your armor. Most other things kind of become a gray area, whether it's really a big deal or not. But effectively, if you wear light armor, you can sleep in it. If you wear medium armor, you have to take it off, and if you wear heavy armor, you have to take it off. Um, so those are one of the things here, but you each have 2 hours that you can watch for. So if Einar takes the first watch, Kander takes the second watch, it is basically then saying that Flynn will wake up approximately like before dawn and basically watch for the last 2 hours. But kind of regardless, you guys are going to leave a gap tonight.
Yeah, I guess we don't really have a choice.
I mean, we could like maybe Candor suggest maybe if we he'll offer to I can sleep anywhere. I'll take my watch, but I can maybe take a rest in the wagon after for the rest of the night, and then at least that way something tries to come, it'll wake me up.
Yeah, I think that's a good plan.
So you're basically saying you're going to keep watch for your amount of time and then sleep in the wagon and hope that kind of gives you a little bit extra of an edge. Is that what I got there?
Yeah, yeah. So he's not. Yeah, he'll like kind of take his usual watch and then kind of for the remainder of the night just kind of bunk down inside the wagon, hoping that he'd be quicker to wake perhaps if something happened.
Gotcha. So that is perfectly fine. That is an excellent solution. I do want to throw it out there though, just because Nick kind of said it as like this is inevitable. You guys can always choose, like one of you can choose to not sleep and basically take exhaustion to actually watch. That's why it's not strictly speaking inevitable. But that is a solution that we will go for here, and we can kind of move forward. But for what it is worth, if I can have perception checks from Einar, that would be perfect. And this is where, again, if you set in, I want it to roll twice. Most of the time when you are doing something at night, you are at disadvantage. So in the long run, I do want things rolled twice, like for perception checks especially. And you can check again inside of or beyond 20 in the options. There is an option to set that's always roll twice. So Einar, your first watch is going to go by pretty simply. You're not really struggling to stay awake so much as you don't really feel a need to stay terribly attentive. You have a constant bit of noise from these travelers. Perhaps with your own experience traveling across the world, you are kind of like thinking of it, this makes sense why we did in one day what they've done in two, because these people don't seem terribly inclined towards sleep and doing the smarter thing. You have enough kind of suspicion that these people are drinking and making merry in a situation where they could be far more um, kind of quiet and actually a little bit more like honoring the dangers of the road. But more or less, your first watch is going to be filled with sounds of this group that's kind of doing their own thing. As far as things around you, you can't really tell anything that's really jumping out. And when you are ready, if you can roll another perception check for me, please. Excellent. Your second watch is going to pass by in a pretty similar fashion. You are going to, at some point, recognize yourself as waking up from having kind of fallen asleep. As far as things go with that, let me have you roll a D100. So when you kind of recognize yourself as kind of waking up from sleep, you take a moment to shake it off. You feel pretty solid that it probably wasn't for long. It's just a little bit too relaxing hearing kind of the sounds of this group and more or less kind of the wind in the trees, the leaves, and the grass of this area. But you recognize that it's probably about time for you to wake up Candor. You can go over and get Candor's attention and wake up Candor for me.
Hey, Kanda. It seems it's your watch. It's been uneventful so far. Good luck, my friend.
So when you are all set, Candor, if you would roll a perception for me, please. Alrighty. So on your watch, you are going to kind of hear like the dying down of them actually having hushed conversations, the last of kind of ale being poured and people kind of continuing about their day. They are basically kind of winding down the night into this evening. You have a pretty solid sense of it being about midway through the night. The moon is kind of high in the sky, in a kind of waning crescent, and more or less you have a pretty straightforward and clear watch. And can you roll another perception for me?
Yeah, a couple times Candor's gonna kind of wistfully think like, I should go over and get a see if I can finagle some ale from him, but he'll stay with the wagon.
Excellent. So this next watch, pretty similar things happening. More or less, you're going to fall into a pretty kind of stark silence here. It gets to the point where you can hear kind of the slight sounds of the coast on occasion. At times, you can kind of hear a little bit of wind in the grasses, but more or less, this gets into the like deep silence of the late night on the road. And eventually, you can then lay yourself down to the wagon and kind of get your own little sleep before hopefully Flynn takes over.
Yeah, I'll try to like make a little, as best he can, try to make a little pillow for maybe some of the uh stuff in the wagon, and yeah, then settle down. trying to like make a mental note to like wake up in a couple hours to wake Flynn.
So at some point here, while you are sleeping, you are going to have a weird dream of you're walking up the streets of Baldur's Gate, kind of making your way from the docks towards the northern gate and the like merchant area that's up towards that northern gate. And it's a long arching road that kind of curves around the northern side of the city, and it's very steeply inclined up as you're going higher and higher, kind of away from the river. I want to say it's Tyrion, but it's not really that big of a deal. But you basically have this sense like you're trying to get everything to market, and you just feel like every time you try to like take the next step, you're dropping something and it's clanking to the ground. And then you try to reach and pick up this thing that you've dropped, and something else falls and clanks to the ground. And you have this very uneasy sleep here, Candor, where you just feel like you're trying to make it to the top of Baldur's Gate, but every single step it feels like you're dropping something and just making this ruckus. What are you thinking here?
Yeah, I mean, I guess like Candor's kind of like tossing and turning. He's thinking maybe it's like I mean, I don't know how much he would be like thinking, but it's almost like subconsciously like it's maybe it's this dream is brought on by like worries about you know the trip to Phandalin, or is it some sort of like you know um
Roll an insight check for me. So as you're kind of tossing and turning inside of this dream, you are going to bump into something, hear somebody kind of yell out, and almost kind of try to stifle their voice. And as an initial reaction, you are going to grab, and you have somebody's ankle in your hand. What are you doing?
So I think at this point, like he'll as he grabs the ankle, if it's enough to kind of wake him up, he'll almost kind of like just like instinctively shout hold there, and kind of like try to sit up and trying to like blink away the darkness, see if he can see anything in front of him. And now and now he's thinking like, okay, maybe these sounds that he heard in the dream of the things dropping was actually something from like actual real life breaking into his dream.
All right, let me get a perception check from Flynn and from Einar. And then let me have initiative from Candor.
Sorry, I thought I said it to roll twice. But yeah, 7.
All right, Candor. So you have this person's leg in your hand. You can see the figure kind of standing on top of the wagon. They seem to already being kind of like dropping whatever they've like started to pull out of the wagon, and are reaching for their own weapons like across their belt. What would you like to do in this instant?
So I think Candor is going to attempt to kind of uh, grab this figure, try to like essentially prevent them from drawing their weapon, as he's also going to be like shouting out, Flynn, Einar.
Gotcha. I'll give you the opportunity to make a grapple check to restrain this person, because you already kind of snapped to. You normally can't simply restrain somebody, but we'll go for that for right now to give you like a initial option to basically like throw your hand on top of their hilt and kind of slam the sword back into its sheath.
Yeah, I was thinking, well, maybe either that, or if it make no sense if I'm still holding the guy's ankle to essentially try to like pull it and like get him off balance.
That is an alternative option. Is basically to trip them, to basically do a grapple like a pusher's shove to trip them.
Yeah, that probably makes more sense than to what he would try to do.
Gotcha. So same idea. It is effectively a grapple check here, which is a strength athletics. So as you kind of pull out against their leg and try to lift it up, you just see as this person gives like a good like hop or two with their off leg to kind of maintain balance. And at present, they kind of pick up this balance and they have maintained it. This is there anything else that you are going to do? Would you like to basically stand up at this point?
Yeah, I think he'd be scrambling to his feet like as he's like doing this and calling out for the others.
Gotcha. So as you stand up, this figure is going to get their hand to a weapon. They're going to unsheath across their belt. As they kind of pull it out, you're going to see the flash of metal. As they swing down towards you, they're kind of going for the ground for like a killing blow into you and entirely miss you as you're kind of standing up and moving away from where they bring down the blade. But this figure is going to miss. And at this point, let me get initiative from Einar and Flynn, please. Alrighty. So, Flynn, you are awakening to the sound of all of this happening. Effectively, you are being surprised as to what is going on, not able to move or react or really do anything at all on your turn. Your turn is going to pass. At this point, you are then able to react to something happening if it happens close enough to you or procs like an ability that you actually have that uses a reaction. So at this point, after your turn, you are able to now react. From there, it is going to go to another of these figures. They are going to kind of see the situation and very quickly kind of yell out, "Nobody needs to get hurt. Let us take what we need to take and we'll be on our way and you can leave alive." You're going to hear the next person kind of yell out, "Raoul, you bloody coward. Just get him." And then this one is going to rush for Flynn and draw their sword to attack Flynn. So at present, you do not have armor on Flynn. This person should hit you as they swipe across you, and they are going to deal 2 slashing damage to you as they cut across you with their short sword. And then that is going to go to Einar. Kind of a pretty similar thing is happening here. You are effectively surprised as you are waking up, unable to do anything on this actual turn. You will be able to react at the end of your turn here, and then we are going to go to Candor.
All right, so Candor, as he sees this kind of blade slashing down, but missing him, and like, bloody bastard, and he's going to move to draw his own blade and attempt to stab into this figure that attacked him. As he's like, also just like, not ours to give, I'm afraid. Uh,
So solid hit here. Yeah, I'm gonna say it's enough at this point that you guys are close together. Didn't really discuss where you were necessarily sleeping, but we'll go for that sneak attack on this. That is a killing blow. As you sink the blade into this person, they are going to kind of fall from the wagon and with just a very dull thump to the ground, you have a pretty solid idea that that person was brought low by that attack.
And with that, I think Candor's going to move to try to get out of the wagon and looking about to see, spot Flynn and Einar if he can exactly, or at least get to the ground.
Gotcha. And from there we have another one of their figures looking over towards the one attacking Flynn is going to move for Flynn, reaching out to attack. I believe a 9 is a big solid miss, and it is going to go to... Right, you don't have a negative dexterity with Flynn? Yeah, 0.
No.
Excellent. Yep. So he's going to attack for you, and you're going to be able to kind of move just enough out of the way to step aside from the sword. And you have 2 figures who are standing above you, trying to attack. What would you like to do?
Oh, is it my turn?
Yep, it's on Flynn.
Oh, okay. Yeah, can I pick up my sword and shield? At least bring my AC up a
It
little.
takes a action to don your shield. You are more than welcome to don your shield, but you can do nothing else effectively.
Okay. I
So
guess
you
I'll.
can draw your sword as a free action with attacking with it, but that's kind of the thing, is if you want to go offensive at all, your shield is not going to be a part of the mix. If you want to don your shield, though, that's going to take your action this turn.
Okay. I guess I'll attack the person who attacked me.
Gotcha. So you can roll an attack with your long sword. Excellent. Yeah, until you get roll beyond 20 set up properly, if you roll and it does not show the damage, I want you to roll damage right away. So you can click where it says longsword in pink there, or you can click like the damage section of longsword. Bam. So we've got that with um yeah, that'll be a killing blow regardless there. In the long run, I am always going to count on yours being a one-handed attack unless you specifically say it. This is kind of a rare occasion where you don't have your shield, so you can wield it two-handed. But in the future, I think we have to like determine that ahead of time. But that is a killing blow regardless.
Yeah, I'll normally be doing one-handed, but yeah, if I can't equip my shield, I might as well two-hand it.
And from there, you're going to watch or would you like to do any other movement? What kind of thoughts do you have as you cut this person down? You have one more person next to you. More or less, you're not far from the others, but what kind of thoughts do you have here as you cut this one down?
I didn't expect them to be uh, bandits, so I'll turn to the other one and say, um, we don't have to do this, but we're not giving you anything in the cart.
So the one who already basically said that let them take what they need to take and they'll be on their way, watching 2 of their friends cut down, is not drawing any weapons and just kind of looking towards you all. I never drew on you. I'm going to disappear. You won't see me again. And they are going to slink off into the darkness. Einar, at this point, you have one more person who is stood over Flynn, the person who just kind of disappeared from sight. What sort of things are you thinking at present?
I'm thinking, is this person still a danger to Flynn? And if so, I just won't hesitate to attack.
Yeah, I mean, the last thing you saw was them attacking Flynn while he cut down the other one. So, what are you attacking with?
I draw. I have 2 short swords. So I'd like to draw those and attack.
Gotcha. So for what you can do here, you can draw 1 short sword and make your attack with that one. Part of being surprised here, though, is you were not prepared for this fight. Normally, having both short swords and being able to use them right off the bat requires that you are actively carrying them. It takes more to bring out 2 than you can do in a single 6 seconds. So at present, you can do a short sword attack as you basically close that distance towards Flynn and strike out at this person.
So, sorry, just double checking. I have a bonus action as well.
That's what I mean, though. You can't draw your second short sword yet.
So, yeah, fine. I will attack.
That's like the difference between, like, if you're walking around in a place where you feel danger is ever present, you have both short swords out. At this point, you were sleeping, and then you were surprised, and now is your first chance to really draw a weapon. So that's why it's limited to the 1.
No problem at all.
Yeah, just as you cut down into this person who's focused on Flynn, you feel like a little bit of purchase across their armor, but you don't actually feel that last bit of push as it kind of gets through the flesh. You're pretty familiar with kind of how things work. This was stopped by their armor. It's like cutting into an animal's hide and not actually making it through the actual skin. So it's a pretty familiar kind of moment for you as you swing and fail to cut through. You're welcome to move or do anything else. Otherwise, it's going to continue to Candor.
Yeah, just to curse and maybe shout, maybe try and attract attention of the other people in the camp as well.
Gotcha. What are you doing here, Candor?
Yeah, so Candor, as he's kind of like, jumping down, seeing, still the one more person with his blade out is going to kind of almost regretfully made the wrong choice, friend, as he attempts to stab into and try to finish off this last apparent armed opponent here.
Gotcha. So with that, a solid hit into this person, you are able to. You're not going to kill this one. It is certainly a fatal wound if you leave them to. They're pretty much like doomed to die kind of thing. But this person does hold on to life from that attack here. And any other thoughts as you kind of stab into them, but they kind of maintain?
Yeah, I think he'd just be kind of looking towards like Flynn and Einar is like, you all right anymore? But that's it. He'll stay on this one. No more movement from him.
Gotcha. So this is one of the things that I like to use the bloodied condition for. This effectively doesn't take any ability check to see. If somebody is half hit points or lower, they look bloodied, they look injured, they look unhealthy. This person with a single stab was taken past bloodied and into fatally wounded, which is why I say that. At level 1, fatally wounded doesn't really mean a whole lot. Most anybody's going to be fatally wounded with 1 hit, because it means that you are under 10 hit points. And this person is indeed also under 10 hit points. So for what it's worth, it's kind of a gray area at this point, but that's why this person is in that state of fatally wounded at my tables means somebody has less than 10 hit points left to go. At higher levels, you'll attack somebody for some time, get them down and hear that they're bloodied, attack them for a little bit longer, and then you'll hear they're fatally. And fatally wounded kind of gives you that idea, like the next hit should be a killing blow. But this person is going to have an opportunity to react. They're going to basically drop to their knees and in a moment of pleading for their life, please, I'm at your will. Don't hurt me. We obviously made a grave mistake. And at this point, it's kind of up to Flynn. Would you like to do anything as this person who's been attacking you is now basically at their knees? The 3 of you surround them. What is Flynn thinking?
Well, Flynn isn't gonna kill someone who's just surrendered. So I'll take his weapon.
Gotcha. So you can take a scimitar from him.
So I'll turn to Kandar and Avind. So what do you think we should do with him?
And with that, it'll go to Einar.
Oh, Einar. Yeah, sorry. I was looking at your other name.
Einar's interested now in searching the other bodies to see if there's anything of use and to claim any weapons.
Do an investigation. No, I'm sorry. Do a perception. And then what would Kandar like to do?
So Kandar's looking towards the now kind of surrendering one. How many were you? Any more hiding out there? Kind of with his he'll be holding his blade like, kind of at the man's throat.
Let me have an intimidation from you. Einar, as you go through the other 2 bodies, you will find 2 of them with light crossbows. One of them has a short sword, and the other one has a hand axe. And one of the corpses is of the person who introduced himself as Pike the night before. Kender, as you are kind of pushing into this person to gain some information, you're just going to see as he kind of like looks up to you. You see like the first kind of signs of his eyes almost collecting in tears. And you came into our camp last night. We were 14 of us. There was a decision that we should leave you to your own, but not all of us agreed. And it seems that it was to our mistake. And if you look around the camp at this point, you can see that those other 4 wagons are all gone.
So Kandar's gonna kind of like shake his head, like ruefully, "It's a mistake indeed." But he'll look towards Flynn. Um, we can't just kill him, but
Well, we could tie him up and hand him over to the first uh, patrolman we see tomorrow.
I don't think he's going to last the night. He's fatally wounded. I just think we should leave him here.
If you're going to turn me in to the guards of Neverwinter, do me the favor of at least putting me out of my misery. All I will suffer there is the same death.
Kander's gonna looking towards the others. Fina's friends attacked us in the night. Nothing to say he won't try again some other time. Perhaps we should simply end things here. Although he doesn't seem very enthused about it, but alternatively, just leave him to his fate. Let the gods decide.
Yeah, I'm not one for slaughtering someone who's surrendered, although he did commit a crime. Whatever the guard, whatever the authorities decide to do with him is up to them.
Yeah, I'm not for slaughtering. People are already dead. Let the gods decide. And if he survives, hand him over.
So are you all thinking tie them up and leave them here? Are you going to keep them with you and turn them in to guards when you see them? Kill them? Any other options that I'm not thinking of?
Yeah, perhaps we tie him up. And or Kander will kind of suggest like we tie him up. We kind of we'll bring him with us. Have him walk beside the wagon in the morning if we happen to see a guard. If he falls behind or he can't keep up or he kind of succumbs, then we kind of you know don't worry too much about it. But that would be his suggestion.
I'm in complete agreement with that.
Guess I'll go with the group on that.
And it seems that they're in agreement. He'll take some rope that he's got kind of strapped to the side of his backpack and move to kind of tie the man's hands. He would search him just to make sure to see if he's got any other like weapons, like a dagger or something on him. Try to disarm him, and then would move to tie him up.
Make an investigation check for me, Kander. So yeah, looking over him, you can certainly take effectively anything that they have on their person. You do find kind of the classic dagger. Pretty much everybody has some sort of knife. It is effectively your fork as well as like your knife for cutting food. It is pretty normal for everyone to have a knife. It's kind of like that classic trope. Like if you find somebody who doesn't have a knife, you can assume that their knife is hidden somewhere on their person because you can't really go through life without some sort of a knife. But you are able to find his knife. You kind of clean him and feel pretty confident as you tie them up to the back of the wagon. And at this point, effectively kind of twist into. I've erased my notes. I think Flynn was going to be the final watch.
Yep.